welcome to the Smarketing Show. This week we've got the ultra special guest on, a friend of mine and a guy that I follow on LinkedIn. I'm one of over 19,000 people, by the way, that follow this guy on LinkedIn. He's written hundreds of articles. He's got a ton of followers on YouTube. He produces a video every day called End of the Day with Ray. If you're a tech reseller, imaging reseller, you know this guy for sure. I met him early in his career when he was shooting videos in front of his China cabinet, and I said, Ray, can we go back old school today as you talk about bucking the status quo, what's happening in the digital space? Because I think of all people I know, you live at the intersection of the digital and physical reality. Ray, thanks for joining us today.
Well, it's great to be here, Rick. I appreciate that. I figured I'd put the bookcases. It's not a China cabinet. There's no China in this cabinet. It's a bookcase, my friend. But you know,
great.
Rick reached out to me a while back and he said, Ray, you got to do something different with those videos. That China cabinet, it's too much noise back there. So we did the green screen for a while. We had some fun with that. But it all led to the End of the Day with Ray, so I'm glad to be here. Cheryl, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Ray? Thanks so much for coming on and being our extra special guest this week.
Well, I got to be the extra special, so I appreciate that. I know you had special guests before, so I feel like
I want to start by asking you a question because you obviously are somebody that gets a lot of traction with the video work that you do.
Okay.
Why do you think that video content works so well, Ray?
Well, because it's the reality of the world. It's interesting because, as Rick said when he opened this up, that I had written a couple hundred articles. And, about 3 or 4 years ago, the articles would get 1,000 views, 1,500 views, and you'd get your reactions. And with video, it's really taken the place of articles. If you write an article that's more than 400 or 500 words long, you probably get anybody to read it. And the video views are in the thousands. And it's just the world likes video. And, the one thing that people misunderstand is that when you do a video, the person might not necessarily be watching it. They might be listening to it kind of like a podcast. So a lot of people have converted to, hey, let's do a video. If they want to watch it, they can watch it. But at the same time, I believe a lot of my videos are being listened to, like it would be a podcast. And that allowed me to get more time, because if you focus on just the visual aspect of a video, then people would say, oh, only make it more than 2 minutes. Rick was one of those guys. But the reality of it is, as long as you have things that people want to hear, if you have, relevant content, they'll listen to you for 15 minutes, just like they'd listen to a podcast for half an hour. So, I just more and more people.
And Ray, you do a great job shaking it up. In case you don't know, Ray's an absolute a wrecking ball, I'll call it, in a positive sense, where he's challenging the status quo. He speaks every day to business owners. And, Ray, maybe you could talk to our audience today of B2B sales and marketing business leaders on what you're seeing in terms of maybe business leaders resisting kind of really what's happening today in terms of the pandemic and how it's affecting business digitally.
Well, I think that we expedited the digitalization of the SMB space. The enterprise space was already heading this way. They were rapidly heading this way. But that SMB space was still procrastinating their digitalization. But I believe in 2021, by the end of 2021, we'll be where we would be without a pandemic in the year 2027. I think we advanced at least 5 or 6 years, and the SMB space is not going to go back. I mean, I had a conversation with a gentleman that ran a bank. 60% of his employees are going to work remote. And for my friends in the printing industry, here's something to think about. Those 60% that are going to work remote, guess what they're not allowed to do? Print. And it's locked from their VPN. So it's very, very interesting. So we're going to see the dynamics of people shifting more to work at home. We're going to see the digitalization of executives that have procrastinated. I mean, I can't imagine how many C-level executives have put email on their phone for the first time, have actually went on Amazon and bought something for the first time because they were at home. So it'll be very interesting. We're not putting the genie back in the bottle.
Ray, you talk a lot about how right now especially is the time when business owners need to be honest with themselves. And what do you mean by that when you say that?
Well, I think that a lot of times it's easier to create a vision from our memories as opposed to using our imagination and basing that imagination on market realities. I mean, if you think about, there's a lot of industries out there that are completely disrupted in a digital landscape. As we were talking before we came on, Cheryl, there's a lot of people that have left their insurance man or women who they used to meet with for lunch, and they would go to their office and they would do all these things, and they had this interconnected human relationship, and they swapped that in for a digital experience. Mm-hmm. You know, that quote I have, you could be the vendor with the greatest relationship in the world and lose to the innovator who delivered your customer a better experience. And that digital landscape is really a better experience. What's ironic is most C-levels or CEOs or organizations do so much themselves digitally, but then they refuse to allow their customers to have that same experience, or they perceive in their mind that that wouldn't be a great relationship. That would destroy the great relationship they have. My gosh, we've been doing it this way for 30 years and we're still going to do it this way. Well, this way could be your last way. You know, it could get expedited pretty quickly.
So Ray, you know, 6 months ago, we had conversations with clients where they said, you know, our product and service is for the most part a commodity, and it's the relationship that they have with the employees within the organization. So are you saying now, not so much the relationship and really the product service needs to be more the focus?
Well, first of all, people don't buy relationships. In 1990, in the year 2000, there was a lot of face-to-face interactions to sell and execute commerce. That's what it took. What Amazon did was built a digital platform which allowed people to buy whatever they wanted for the most part, and have it delivered without ever talking to a human. The bottom line is that the greatest relationship for your customers could be without a human interaction. Don't dismiss that, because your customers' relationships with the outcomes they desire, you're just giving them the means to achieve it. That's all we do as resellers. We provide a means for our customers to achieve a desired outcome. Currently, we do that through a human interaction. We do that through a sales rep walking into their office and bothering them. Does that mean that we couldn't switch some of that to an online presence? Absolutely, we better be doing that. Does that mean that every single customer is going to be able to buy from us in a digital landscape? Absolutely not, if we're good service providers. But if we misunderstand our value add, that's going to be a real detriment to us moving forward. Because we got to match our real value with our customers' perception of what that real value is. And a lot of times we're still thinking that we're valued by our customers the way we were 10 or 15 years ago. And our friends in the imaging channel, Rick, that's a big problem I see. They really believe, you know, you talk to these guys and gals and they'll talk to you about things that were relevant in the year 2000, not 2020.
So I say to Ray when we're having a Canadian Bud Light when you're up here, by the way, I say, look, I agree with a lot of things you say. Some things maybe I have differing thoughts, but I think we do agree on the fact that business leaders need to accelerate their sales model to incorporate this new digital technology. And, you know, as we work in different sectors, I can tell you that some companies have been very progressive and have already been doing, you know, digital demonstrations, you know, digitally screen sharing like this for years. And it's just all of a sudden people have awoken to this platform. And yet we still see, and I know you see it, Ray, you talk about it almost every day, how people are stuck in status quo. So what seems to be this inhibitor that they don't want to step up and step out and do these new things for customers that customers really are waiting for?
Human capital. Depending on the maturity of the industry or the business model, if you look at the imaging channel, the place that sells copy machines and printers and their services, most of those owners are in their 60s, their late 60s. Most of those owners are kind of in that quote, well, nothing will change till I retire. Well, guess what? It's time to retire because this pandemic caused a lot of those changes. So I think that if we're going to get into a digital landscape and we're going to deliver in 21st century, you know, methods, we better have people that work in organizations that understand that space. And, you know, if you look in the imaging channel, is a great place. You know, we hire these VPs of sales, and then we want them to run our e-commerce platform when they've spent their whole entire career, you know, working reps on a street level. They don't understand the space. Mm-hmm. And when you don't understand and you're trying to navigate towards something different and you don't quite understand it, as soon as you run into one little objection, you run back to what you're comfortable with. And then you make up all the reasons why it didn't work, instead of focusing on all the reasons why it should be working. And it just takes strong leadership to do that. But a lot of times it's this mentality, I'm not going to ruffle any feathers because hell, I retire in a couple of years. You know, we're never going to do that because I got to let me just hang on a little bit longer. Well, the tenure a little bit longer ran out.
You may have to retire earlier if you keep what you're doing. I'm totally kidding. I love your opinions. I follow Ray on LinkedIn. You know, to your point, I saw a video the other day. A guy drilled a hole, and he took the drill out and he said, "Look, are you selling the drill bit or are you selling the 1/4-inch hole to your customers? Because whatever, that's what they want." And you know, Ray, I'm seeing as we work with our clients, a lot of them are saying, you know what, to your point, I'm used to coaching a tennis player, but now I've got to coach a football team. There's a whole bunch more things happening in this digital space. And what worked over there, the principles don't quite apply in football as they did in tennis. And so a lot of companies, candidly, have awakened to the fact that, oh my gosh, as you said, my website's actually important. And we've seen an overwhelming surge all of a sudden, people saying, you know what, I got to look good digitally where they never would have thought that way, you know, 90 days ago before COVID.
But, so, you know, here's one of the problems, Rick, with the C-levels, because everything starts at the top. But it's amazing if you look on LinkedIn or the social platforms, you see very few C-levels in our industry that actually participate in that space. I don't know what they're reading. Maybe they're getting some magazine mailed to their house or something, and that's their information. But the bottom line is that one of the problems that I see is a lot of these executives are outsourcing their digital footprint. And there's nothing wrong with outsourcing some of that, but that doesn't mean you totally ignore it. Here's a great example. There was a person that's the expert in social media that's actually going to be doing a webinar pretty soon about how great social media is and how to monetize it. Well, that same individual put out an article on LinkedIn that had about 47 comments to it. And guess what? The so-called expert didn't engage any of the people that commented. So he threw something out there and he just let it loose, and he's some expert. So I think there's a whole lot of experts in the marketplace that are telling C-levels that are struggling in this space exactly what they want to hear. So they hire them. And, you know, don't worry, we'll take care of all that for you. There's some merit to that. But at the end of the day, if they're not willing to get in the space themselves, how the hell are they going to know how to navigate it? And how are they going to present expectations for their teams? Because I think
that's one thing I respect about you is, I mean, you always say it the way it is through your lens, of course. And I think a lot of business leaders don't know what to do. This is a new thing. And you're right. There's a lot of people popping up with the shingle saying, hey, I'm the digital specialist in this area. And I've said many times in this show, I think right now companies got to hire their digital marketing agency partner like they're selecting a lawyer for a case they have to win right now until this thing gets over. But anyway, Ray, I know Cheryl's probably got one last question, but I just want to say congratulations on what you're showing, not talking about, using video, using LinkedIn, the daily videos you put out. I mean, you are an absolute role model, I think, of what people can do to scale their personal brand and, better yet, the brand and the message of their business. So congrats on what you're doing, buddy. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it, but I do love what I do. That helps.
It's hard to tell.
Ray, thank you so much. This is the part where I come in and wrap it up and say thank you. Your clock's broken, by the way, behind you.
Yeah, well, it works twice a day.
Thank you for joining us. If anybody has any questions for Ray or for any of our guests or any suggestions on topics, you can always email us anytime, engage@intocommunications.com. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and tell us what you think about the show. Thank you so much, boys. We'll see you guys next week.
And Ray, any closing lines, Ray? Something about don't get stuck, something?
Absolutely. I'll end this like I do the end of the day with Ray. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo. Thanks a lot, team.
See you next week.
You heard it here on the Smarketing Show. Thank you for joining us today, Ray. Great job, Cheryl.
Appreciate it.
See you guys.